Welcome back. Let's start talking about price controls. When we look at government policies, governments have a couple things they try to do. One of them is price controls, the other one's taxes. We'll talk about in another video. But let's look at price controls. There are essentially two main price controls, a price ceiling and a price floor. Now, you have to be able to discern whether or not a price ceiling or a price floor is binding. Okay, let's take ceiling first. So binding, non-binding. Well, when you think about a ceiling, okay, that's something up here you can't go through. Okay, you can't go up through a ceiling. So if equilibrium is upstairs above this ceiling, I can't reach it. If equilibrium's in the room, I can get there. Conversely, a floor, I'm standing on a floor, there's a floor beneath me, so if there's no way through equilibrium through the floor, I can't get there. But if I'm in the room with equilibrium, again, I can grab it. All right. Now I want you to think of equilibrium, well, just as it is, quantity supplied equals quantity demand. It's the only place on the graph where we are in, well, equilibrium. It's the most efficient point on the entire graph. So everything here, I want you to think of it as like a magnet. Okay. Everything is trying to get to equilibrium. You're trying to get the price of equilibrium, quantity equilibrium, because that's where quantity supplied equals quantity demanded. Now, ceilings prevent you from going up. Floors prevent you from going down. All right? So let's think about this. A binding price ceiling would prevent you from going up to equilibrium. See the ceilings here? You can't get to equilibrium, which is right there. A non-binding price ceiling would be above equilibrium. I can get up, because we're talking about a ceiling here, I can get up to equilibrium if this is the price ceiling. I cannot get up to equilibrium if this is the binding price ceiling. So an example of this would be rent control. So a government says, you know what, you can't charge that much for rent. We're going to regulate that in the market. Supply and demand says rent for a very small apartment in Manhattan should be $3,000 a month. We're going to limit it to $2,000 a month. So it should be price at equilibrium 3. It's stuck at price at equilibrium, or not at equilibrium, price control of, let's say, 2,000, and you can't get up to equilibrium. All right. So if you're not in equilibrium, you're in what you call disequilibrium. So a ceiling, if it's set below, write this down. A ceiling, if it's set below equilibrium, prevents you from getting up to equilibrium. Think about that. It's a limit on how much you can charge. All right. If the limit is set above what the market would do anyway, it's a non-binding. If it's set below, it is binding because it prevents you from getting up to equilibrium. So if you're not in equilibrium, you're in something called disequilibrium. And that is a fancy word for saying quantity supplied does not equal quantity demanded. Okay? So if quantity supplied does not equal quantity demanded, we're not in equilibrium. We're at our binding price ceiling here. We're here for quantity supplied, and we're here where the price control crosses at quantity demanded. You have quantity demanded that exceeds quantity supplied. It means you don't have enough of something. You are in disequilibrium, and what you have is a shortage. And many places that have rent control, number one, don't have enough apartments anyway. But when you enact binding price ceilings, you actually worsen the housing situation, because those that can move away from apartments to, say, office space, they're economically incentivized, and people respond to incentives, to do so. Then the people who are stuck making, with apartments that, they're getting $2,000 for instead of the market value of $3,000, they're not all that happy. So you're going to have some that are going to make apartments office space. You're going to have those that are stuck with apartments. You know what? The dishwasher breaks, and I'm taking a $1,000 loss every month when I should be getting 3. I'm only getting 2. Do you fix the dishwasher? No. Do you repaint between tenants? No. Okay, so you actually lead to a little bit of slumlord situation here. Let's switch over to binding price floors. Floors, again, prevent me from going down. So it's trying to prevent me from going down to equilibrium. Just remember, are we talking about a floor or are we talking about a ceiling here? Ceilings won't let you go up. Floors won't let you go down. So if the floor is set below equilibrium, I don't care to go down here. This is non-binding. If the floor is set above equilibrium, this is like my magnet, I want to go there badly, all right? It prevents me from going down there. So equilibrium's here, floor's there, I can't go there, which means I'm in disequilibrium where quantity supplied does not equal quantity demanded. And in fact, There's my quantity demanded. There's my quantity supplied. My quantity supplied exceeds my quantity demanded. I've got too much of something. That's called a surplus. Now, why is the example here minimum wage? Well, you might be worth, let's say, $6 an hour frying fries in rural South Carolina, but the federal government says you got to pay them $7.25. Okay? Well, what you have there then is an increased cost for something that's not worth it, and we all know as consumers, we don't buy things that aren't worth it, or at least we don't buy them again. All right? Well, who's the buyer in this situation? Well, if this is a labor market, suppliers are workers. All right? Demanders are firms. But we're talking about minimum wage here. So what are we talking about? Unskilled labor. So this isn't someone with a ton of skills. It's unskilled labor. If you pay unskilled labor more than they're worth, more of them are going to want to supply their time. That just makes sense. That's the law of supply. All right? And so if you have these unskilled laborers and you have too many of them, you have a surplus because they're being, by the market standards in this hypothetical situation, overpaid because they should be $6 and now they're $7.25. This distance right here is your surplus, and a surplus of labor is called unemployment. I put UE there. This is unemployment. Now you exacerbate the situation when you go federally and say, hey, you know what? You know what we should do? We should make it $15 an hour. What happened to unemployment? Boom, it got bigger. You just exacerbated the problem. So when you're not in equilibrium, your quantity supply is not going to equal your quantity demanded. That means one of them is going to be greater than the other. You either have a shortage or a surplus. All right? It's a tricky one. You're going to make sure you do the reading on this one. Follow up with it. Put in the time. Hope this video helps.